No, I have never been too quiet. So, for those who haven't had the pleasure or pain of having me inflicted on you, my name is Peter Henning. I'm on the faculty here and have been here, I hate to say it, 21 years. But we have 4 panelists today who are general counsels, or in the general counsel's office, and are going to talk about their experience and also how they got there. And that's where we'll start. But let me just briefly introduce them, go from your left to my right. First is Terry Larkin. I don't want to get the class year wrong. Class of 1979. Terry is now the Executive Vice President, Business Development and General Counsel and Corporate Secretary at Lear Corporation, one of the largest, if not the largest, auto supplier?
One of the largest.
Among them.
Top 5, right.
Top 5 auto suppliers. I always have to be careful because next to him is Aleksandra Miziolek, class of 1980, who is Senior Vice President, General Counsel, and Secretary of Cooper Standard Automotive, which is also a major.
Major, but not nearly as major.
Not,
No.
you know, in the auto supply world, you can do, you know, do you do overhead components, seats, and won't even pretend I understand any of it, but they can explain their job, which I don't think involves much car tinkering.
No, not by me.
hope
No,
not. So, and then on this side, on the right, is Amy Peterson, who is the non-Wayne Law grad, although we would certainly have loved to have had her. She's a graduate of New England Law School in Boston, and she is now Associate Counsel for the Detroit Tigers, who are, I'm not going to ask any questions about what happens to Alex Avila or anything like that, but she's also, I can ask.
answer, that's all.
I'm not sure yet. And I suspect the true answer would be, I don't know, what free agents are you going to go after? But she is also co-founder and CEO of Rebel Nell, right? And she can explain a little bit about that to you. And then on the far right is Angelo Vitale, who is class of 1983. And I believe one of his classmates is here. Could also be the highly esteemed Mark Grobel, whose foursome won the Alumni golf tournament this past May by playing under winter rules, if I recall, if you're a Caddyshack. And Angelo is Executive Vice President and General Counsel of Quicken Loans, which is a company we are all very familiar with here in Detroit. So let me just begin. We'll start with Terry just for a minute or two, because I know you have questions, but if each of you could address just generally a little bit how you got where you are, and did you expect to get there? Oh, I'm sorry, we also have, I should introduce, I believe this, well, first shot, no, this is Dean Jocelyn Benson.
Hi everyone, I'm just saying hi, and welcome, great to see all of you again.
Nice to see you.
This is really an incredible panel you have. Hi, nice to meet you. It's really an incredible collection of people you have with you today, so I won't take any of the time up, but I really am glad to see so many of you here, because these are people who are in different fields at the top of their fields, in one of the more growing fields in the legal market right now. So kudos to all of you who are here to talk with these great influential figures within their corporations and within the legal community. And thank all of you for being here and spending the afternoon with us. Sorry I can't spend more time. Thanks.
Okay.
And thank you, Professor
Oh,
Henning,
no.
for moderating.
I had a class in here, I'm stuck.
Thanks.
I'm not going anywhere.
Nice to see you. Thank you.
And Professor Brown is right after this. Who looks exactly like him. So I'll just step right into that role. That's easy. So, I don't know if, did you want me to repeat the question? Or
No, I think I-
how you got there, and also a little bit too of, did you expect to be there, or what is it that a student can reasonably expect out of a legal career?
Well, thanks, Professor Henning, for having us here. It's great to be back at Wayne Law School, and it's nice to see that in the many years that I've been gone, some things don't change. The front row still remains open. As Professor Henning said, I'm the general counsel of Lear Corporation. It's a tier 1 automotive supplier, global business that has roughly 135,000 employees working in 36 countries around the world. That is a very different position than where I started my legal career, which was at a Detroit-based business law firm named Bodman. Bodman is one of the premier business law firms in the city of Detroit. I spent 28 years there at Bodman, and Lear was a client of mine that I had served for roughly 20 years. And so when an opening came available in the general counsel's office, the then general counsel called me and said, Terry, you've worked with Lear and our people for many years. I'd like to get your perspective on what I should be looking for in a general counsel. And so we talked for about an hour, and I shared with him my views of what I thought the right qualities and attributes would be, and you know, the way I would see that job working out for someone who would succeed him. And he said to me at the end of it, you know, maybe I should have thought of this at the beginning, but would you have any interest in this job? And so, to answer your question, my going into a corporate counsel role came about quite unexpectedly, at least for me. Now, I suspect that maybe he might have planned it all along, I'm not sure, but for me it was quite unexpected. I was one of the senior partners at the Bodman firm. I was on the executive committee, managed the business law practice group, and really enjoyed my career. And as I said, I was there for 28 years, so I never had any expectation of leaving. But the opportunity to become a corporate counsel really intrigued me, and I decided to give it a try. And I've really been very, very pleased with the experience that I've had. It helps being with a great company. I really enjoy the people I work with. But the thing that's unique, well, I don't want to take up too much time when we have others to get it, but the thing you'll see about corporate counsel life that's markedly different than other kinds of practice is that you only have one client. And so you get to focus intensely on the needs of that client, learn that business extremely well. And I think that a lawyer with your analytical training can make contributions well beyond just in this purely legal realm. You will become a very influential part of the senior leadership team. And so that, I think, is what has appealed to me, and I think it's what makes that career path appealing for, I hope, for many of you.
Alex? Sure.
Well, my story is not too different from Terry's. I started off, although I did spend 2 years clerking for a federal judge here in the Eastern District, Honorable Judge James P. Churchill, as we used to every day in the courthouse when we said our heary, and please rise. But those 2 years were very good for me because I really appreciated and really fine-tuned my personal view that I did not want to do litigation. So having watched for 2 years how the jurors would fall asleep during a lot of the testimony and how totally uncontrollable the whole process was. So, and then I joined a law firm and I went into the corporate department. So, like Terry, I spent actually 32 years at Dyckma. But at the end, probably the last 10 of those years, I was focusing on administrative matters as well as we developed these industry groups, and I became the leader of the industry group. And as part of my job doing that, I really had to call on, my job was to grow our revenue from the automotive supplier and OEM base. And as a result, I spent a lot of time talking with and developing relationships with general counsels of the automotive supply base and the OEMs. One of whom was Terry and several others. And so I sort of, in talking to them, especially Terry and my predecessor at Cooper Standard, Tim Heffron, among others, I really started appreciating much more than I had before how interesting it was. And over the years, I remembered when I was working with clients, I always enjoyed sort of the business aspect of it. I had a public and private company clients, and when they sort of talked to you about their business, that was really the most the most fun for me. And so, not too much unlike Terry, in my quarterly lunches with the general counsel for Standard, when I was trying to, as much as I could, get some business, so we could increase those automotive revenues. We were talking, and he explained that he was looking toward retirement. And then I just said, well, Alex, would you be interested? And I met with the CEO, and that was it. And so it was quite an interesting transition. And as I think Dean Benson mentioned, it is interesting how much I think the in-house position has changed over the years. I think initially, those who went into the law firms thought it was, sort of a lifestyle choice. It's really not the place to be. I think now, I think people are recognizing the value of having a general counsel or an associate counsel, or the legal position is much, I think, more valued inside a corporation. And so that is definitely something that I would recommend all of you to consider. And there are ways in which to get there, but it's definitely a great.
How you got here?
Yeah, how I got here is not a normal trajectory in any stretch of the imagination. I was a little girl who wanted to work in baseball since I was about 14. Kind of crazy. My mom didn't know what the hell I was thinking. And I just really set out with that kind of goal in mind. After law school, I went to business school. I'd always interned for sports teams every summer. I just took the opportunity to, whether it was pulling tarp or working for the radio, doing anything. And then after I finished school, I applied to work for almost all 30 teams in Major League Baseball, except the Yankees. I couldn't do that. So
A true Boston fan.
Yeah, that is the one rejection letter I never received, only because I didn't apply. And so I was at the point where I was collecting rejection letters. They had a nice wallpaper motif going on, lovely letterhead, the thanks but no thanks. And I had 3 from the Tigers, and finally another opportunity opened up. And I'm, at this point, just applying to work for free. I mean, janitorial services, whatever they need, just to get a foot in the door. And I finally got the opportunity to come to Detroit. I packed my entire life into Mini Cooper, including an air mattress that I lived on for many months. And I came in as an intern, just as simple as that. And I was an intern in community affairs, not even in the legal world. And I just kind of took that opportunity to not only did my job, but then I would take the opportunity to kind of meet with other departments, what opportunities are available, just getting to know the business. I started then asking our general counsel if he needed help, and then I started working on arbitration cases about 4 or 5 years ago. And then the workload just started building, and almost organically transitioned into the legal realm, and then I've been associate counsel for the team for about 2, maybe 3 years now. So it's been a great and amazing journey. That is what led me to start this other company. I've been very grateful to Detroit for the opportunities that it gave me. It gave me a shot at my dream job. I also believe very strongly in empowering women. And where I lived in Detroit when I first moved here was right next door to a women's shelter. When I would walk my dog, I would have conversations with the women and hearing their amazing stories. So I started Rebel Now to employ, educate, and empower homeless women here in Detroit. So I kind of balance both things right now, but the real question about working in the legal field and working, particularly in sports, I mean, there's tremendous value. We actually have quite a few attorneys in the front office that aren't practicing. They are running our ticket sales department, running our community affairs department, our Tiger Foundation, and just the value of what you get from your legal education and how it teaches you to think can be valuable across many realms of business. And that's something that I'm grateful for and see every day.
Angelo?
So Amy's story and mine are exactly the same, because as a little boy, I always wanted to be in the mortgage business. Totally not true, but you can spell it accurately. Most of the time it's that T that I'm forgetting. But so my story is sort of one of where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there, and you meet people and things happen. I mean, It sounds like a fall in the river and wherever it takes you kind of story. But it's true. So I went to the University of Detroit for my undergraduate degree and had no intention of going to law school. Hadn't even given it a thought. And I had a poli-sci professor who said in my junior year, so have you thought about law school? I said, no. He said, well, I think you should. I said, really? He said, yeah, I think you have an aptitude for it. He said, so there's an aptitude test, right, the LSAT. So I took it, and the score was pretty good. So I guess I had an aptitude, so I went to law school. I thought I was going to go to Vanderbilt down in Nashville. My mom's from there originally, and a great school, applied, got accepted, but it's private, it's expensive, and Wayne State was home. Detroit was home. So I came to Wayne State, and my real connection with Wayne State that I live and breathe and think about every day is that in my first year legal research and writing class, I had an instructor who was working part-time at a small Detroit firm writing appellate briefs. Her name was Marilyn Mitchell. And Marilyn said to me one semester, first semester of first year, so have you thought about a law clerkship this coming summer? And I said, no, I pretty much plan on going back to Wyandotte where I'm from and work in the chemical factory again to make some money to pay for next year. And she said, well, I think you'd be, a good fit. You should try it. And I said, okay. So I went and met with the managing partner at a small firm, and they hired me as a 1L clerk. And 3 weeks after they hired me, the firm hired their first paralegal, my wife of 31 years next month. So if I'm at Vanderbilt, right, I'm not going to meet the whole thing. It all sort of works, right? Yeah. So I clerked, and it was a litigation firm. And as a law clerk, I thought, I don't know if litigation's my thing, but as an associate, I thought maybe it's going to look and feel really different. So I went, with the law firm, a mid-sized Detroit firm, litigation defense firm, and was able to figure out very quickly, absolutely not is litigation my thing. And I came back through the Wayne State Law career placement office, and there was a posting for an in-house counsel position with a mortgage company. And it said 1 to 3 years experience. Well, I had the 1 year at the firm, and met with the general counsel, and I said, I don't know anything about mortgage finance or anything. He said, you've been going to school forever, right? So you know how to study and learn stuff. So we can teach you about this business, but we can't teach you confidence, common sense, and decisiveness. Some of you guys in the room, I know, have heard this from Quicken Loans internships with us in the legal team, but he said that stuff will put you head and shoulders above a lot of folks in business, not just in law. So he said, so you're hired? And I said, great. So for 12 years I did that with the firm, and in the last 2 years with the company, I should say, they were being shopped for acquisition. So our legal team and every other team in the business was spending most of our time, getting ready for due diligence visits by people who might be buying us, then conducting those visits, and then doing postmortems. And the postmortems typically were, gee, they have 10 lawyers in Denver. I wonder if there's any place for us there. So it was pretty tenuous feeling. I had a young family at the time from Detroit, wanted to stick around, so started looking for companies around town that were in the mortgage space, and there was this little tiny company called Rock Financial, started by a guy named Dan Gilbert, who was a Wayne State Law School graduate, by the way. And they had an opening for their first compliance officer. And I remember the requirements for the position. It ended with legal experience a plus. Well, a dozen years in the mortgage business, maybe that's a plus. So I just wanted to go in and meet the general counsel and do some informational interviewing, and if there was ever an opening or they expanded the staff, maybe there'd be a chance to do business together. So I sent in my resume. They called me in. I met with the first group of folks, and they said, "Wow, you've got a lot of mortgage legal experience, which more than anybody here. Dan's going to want to talk to you." I said, "Okay." So I talked to Dan, and he said, yeah, you've got a lot of mortgage legal experience than anybody around, so how would you like to be a lawyer for us? I said, sure. He said, you're hired, and the first thing you have to do is find us a compliance officer. And he handed me the stack of resumes. My resume was in the stack. And that's the first thing I did as counsel for Rock Financial, now Quicken Loans. The team was about 2 attorneys, a secretary, not a legal admin, right? They were secretaries at the time. Team of about 5 folks, and now the team is with technologists and other folks who are dedicated to our group, over 150 strong. So it's been quite a run. Things happen for a reason.
Let me do this. Let me ask one question, and actually we'll go in the other direction. I'll start with Angelo, and then we'll open it up to you. But I imagine in these first 4 seats up here because no one would ever sit here. By the way, does everybody know the best place to hide is in the front row? If you want to hide, I see everybody in the back. I can see everybody on Facebook too. If in the front row was Terry, Alex, Amy, Angelo, as law students, what would you tell them about preparing for the future, or how to get the job they want, or, you know, what would you tell yourself when you were a law student if the Keith Center had existed? Everybody understands this building didn't exist. When these three were here, it was that building and the classroom building. And the classroom building didn't have cushions on the seats. Talk to any of the graduates from this era and they'll tell you. So you're there. Talk to yourself.
I would say, take the big, wide open view. Look, don't get this track. Don't get this narrow view of this is what my career path looks like from where I sit here today. I'm going to do this, I'm going to go into a law firm, I'm going to be an associate of it, or whatever the case may be. Look around and think, what can I do with this skill set that I'm developing here, this analytical thinking, this problem solving? Where do those opportunities exist out in the wide world? Not necessarily limited to the legal profession per se. And then I would say, don't wait for opportunity, create it. So if you have an interest in baseball, then send an email, get on Facebook, do LinkedIn, everything you can to reach out and say, I have this passion for this area. And be willing to do anything and everything that comes with that, right? Including grounds crew and marketing, because you're learning so much great stuff. Ultimately, your business clients are very much going to appreciate that you understand their business. So you have to get inside and get close to their business. One way to do that is to not do an internship just in the legal department. Get inside the business in an area of interest. Your undergraduate degrees in finance or marketing or other things, get in and learn the business. And then when you get inside the legal side of the business, you're going to be able to talk credibly to your business client, and you're going to be talking in the language they understand, because it's not their responsibility to translate what you're saying from legalese into business speak. It's your responsibility to speak to them in the language they are comfortable with. So if you know it, you're going to be that much farther ahead. That would be my advice to me in the front row, where I never sat either. I was
Reading Time magazine.
Something much more intellectually stimulating.
There used to be magazines.
I actually would echo almost verbatim everything you said. I think that was really well said and very true. The only thing to add is, take advantage of every opportunity, even if it's small. And you mentioned just going in for an informational meeting. People remember you when you get those FaceTime, and people are less likely to remember you if you're always doing an ask. And really take those opportunities to learn. Like, I love learning about people. I spend a ton of my time just meeting with new people at Great Lakes Coffee, just to learn and see what they're about. And you never know. You may never have a connection with them ever again, or you may end up, there's 5 connections, and now you've got a new friend and someone to bounce ideas off of, and hey, that may lead to your dream job. You never know. And that's people are a valuable resource. And, you don't need to be, I was very focused on wanting to work in baseball, but that was not defined by I needed to be an attorney in baseball. In fact, I'm quite shocked I am right now. I always wanted to be more a general manager. I wanted to be the first female general manager. That was like tunnel vision, but I got what I set out to do. I'm working in baseball, which is my dream, and that was incredible. But how I went in, like if I was hell-bent on getting a legal job in baseball, I'd still be knocking on doors somewhere. You have to be flexible and look for opportunities, and find out also, and maybe you really are passionate about law, and I not necessarily am. So I was more interested. I love the mindset that you get from going to law school. I love what I've learned. I love how it teaches you how to think. But then what I like is applying that to my passion. And that's, I think, a good connector for what you're looking for. It doesn't necessarily have to be practicing law per se.
Alex?
Well, my perspective is a little different only because I didn't really have a passion, although I don't think I really had a passion per se, but that was just, I always admire and envy people who have that, sense of what they really want to do. I was more of, okay, I gotta get through this, I can do the best as I can, and I will find a job. And so if I were to talk to myself now, I would say that it would have been great if I had had a better perspective on exactly what I wanted to do. I think in those days, it was okay to be a generalist, as Terry and I were talking to one of you, that law firms brought you in as a generalist. Nowadays, I think it is very much more people are looking for a particular area that they would like to have a person come in and help with. So I probably would have told myself, spend more time, and suggest to you that you spend more time really trying to talk to people about what it is that they do, whether it's trust and estates, whether it's corporate law, whether it's litigation, and there's a zillion different types of litigation, whether it's sports law or healthcare or whatever it is, to really try to understand and see if there's a connection there. Personally, if I had it do over again, I would have taken some accounting classes, even though I had a wonderful tax professor, and I think that if you have any interest in going into the corporate world, that would be an advisable thing to do when you're still young and you can, handle all of that and not have to worry about going back to school when you're, family and other things happening. But in addition to everything that was said, and let me just, I think, say that I absolutely agree that the concept of getting to know as many people as you can and developing those relationships and making really good first impressions, get on LinkedIn and get as many connections as you can get as early now as you can. And also the concept of don't go in there with an ask, always try to figure out what other interests do you have that you might share with that individual that will then develop that relationship, and then you can talk about what it is that perhaps they can do for you. If you go in there with the mindset, this is what what really helps throughout your entire career, what is it that you could do for them first, and then everything else will sort of fall in place.
Well, if I were giving advice to a young Terry Larkin, I would tell myself to do exactly what all of you are doing today. And that is attend as many of these kinds of panel discussions, symposiums that you can to get exposure to lawyers who are actually out practicing. I remember that when I was in law school, I had very little idea of what a lawyer really did in practice. I don't want to really date ourselves, I can't remember, but it's not quite Perry Mason, but there's probably one, maybe it might have been LA
Perry
Law or
Mason.
something, but it's
Perry
not.
Mason.
But that was our idea. Right.
So,
That really was, my idea of what a lawyer was. And I didn't understand really when I was in law school the significant difference between lawyers who are litigators and lawyers who are transactional attorneys, let alone lawyers who are in private practice or government service or in corporate counsel roles. So I think informing yourselves about what all of your choices are would be something I would really emphasize to you at this stage of your careers. I think keeping an open mind is very important. I remember by the time I finished my third year of law school, I'd taken a real estate finance class seminar, and I was just enthralled by it. I loved it, and I thought, well, I know I'm going to be a real estate lawyer. Well, it turned out that's I never practiced real estate law. I think being still today a generalist is a good thing. Now, I recognize that the law firms that you might be looking to go to work with, if you go that route, are much more specialized today, and they're hiring for specific departments. That doesn't mean that you still can't be a generalist in terms of expanding your knowledge base. Because if you have an interest really in being a corporate counsel, I would tell you that I can speak for myself, I absolutely have to be a generalist. I have to know a little bit about a lot of different things. And I don't pretend to be expert in all of them. As I mentioned, we're in 36 countries around the world. I don't pretend to know the law in all 36 countries. But I know enough to identify issues and get the right technical experts involved. The other thing I would say is that you should take advantage of your time in law school to really understand the precious gift that you're receiving from these dedicated professors. And that is, they're teaching you how to think. They're teaching you how to reason analytically. It's not, except at exam time, it's not nearly so much important to be able to recite the substantive law as it is to understand how you reason through problems using your legal knowledge. You'll, in practice, whether it's in corporate counsel role or in private practice, you'll have time to do the research to refresh yourself on all the elements of a particular matter. But it's the ability to think through logically and analytically to get to the right answers that's really the key. And I think I didn't appreciate that nearly as much when I was in law school as I did once I got out of law school. And what really brought that home for me was I was practicing in one of the major law firms, and I would always interact with these litigators, and I was a corporate transactional attorney. And one day they'd be litigating a trust estate matter, another day a real estate dispute, another day a contract dispute. And it would always amaze me how they could be masters of the substantive area of the law in so many different areas. And it brought home to me that what they do is they learn it right on the spot. What they've mastered is the ability to think. And that's what made them successful. So I encourage you all to keep a very open mind. I mean, I would take classes in as many varied things as you can to get the exposure. Don't limit yourselves. Then I would just then second what a number of my colleagues on the panel said to you, which is be mindful about the networking opportunities that you have, right? You don't know who among you may rise up into a position where they could be of help to you later on in your career, whether they become a client or they become a professional colleague or they may become a partner with you. So I think all that's important, and those are things that at least in my days in law school, I had no appreciation for at all. So I'm really pleased to see that you're trying to learn a little bit today about what corporate counsel do. And as you can tell, I think all four of us are very excited about the career paths that we found.
Let me at this point, by the way, Professor Schenk is all your favorite teacher, right? I mean, that's, take Schenk.
Yes, absolutely take Schenk. Believe me, I don't know if you still teach business planning? Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that
we
was
were
my
both-
number one class.
It was
My
ours, mine as well.
favorite class of all.
So that's why we brought
Highly
Schenk
recommended.
here. And, let me, you don't need to hear me. If you have any questions, this would be the time to start, and I'll begin on this side and kind of work my way over. Yes, sir.
So, excuse me, what are some of the things that you guys handle in-house versus picking up the phone to call the firm to kind of get their input on in terms of the exclusivity, or is it more of a partnership on most things?
Yeah, let me take that. It's interesting because I've been in-house a much shorter time than Terry, and that was one of the things that I was really surprised. Coming from the outside law firm, you think that, we're really, all the in-house lawyers should really come to us for everything. Because what do they really know? And actually, that's a little bit of a unfortunate sort of presumption. But there is a great deal of pride among in-house lawyers. We're lawyers, and they know the business. They know what their client needs and what the business needs. And so, to answer your question directly, we do as much as we can, and sometimes we probably do too much because we don't want to go to the outside. Not only is it that it costs a lot of money, and budgets are very important, and you'll learn all about how important they are, especially if you're part of a public company, but private as well. Budgets, and you have to stick with your budget. But also because you have pride that you're a lawyer and you can handle it. And so perhaps as a specific example, I do a lot of board work where I prepare our governance chair, for instance, all sorts of reviews of policies, and so there's a lot of benchmarking that goes on. I will do all of that, and only if it's a very particular type of issue that I think that I really have had no experience in, and there's probably been a lot of developments in the law since I've been in law school or practicing. Then I would go out, and it's usually a gut check, unless it's something very specific, and it's litigation, et cetera. Then you bring in your litigators. But I don't know.
I think you're spot on. I mean, Terry, you said it very well, and issue spotting and red flags are what we're trained to do. And we don't have the answers for everything, and yes, some of us have a stronger background in one realm than the other, which really helps. A lot of what I do has to do with trademark law, contracts. I don't deal much with employment law, so that's one that we will often go for outside counsel. But so much of it is a gut check, and that doesn't always necessarily mean to follow the letter of the law, in essence, because maybe that's to do that, or to, like for an example, with trademark law, and everybody thinks that they have the right to use the Old English deed, which is not true. And I have to go out and defend that oftentimes, but a lot of that is just assessing when is the appropriate time to do that, because it could be a PR nightmare if we go after a small company that's just doing it, that's for charitable purposes. You have to be smart and critically thinking about how you approach each situation. And sometimes that means going to outside counsel and getting advice on those particular matters. So I mean, lockstep with you is just knowing when to do it, when it's appropriate, staying within budget, because oh my gosh, budget is everything. And then, and a lot of things you will be challenged, and every day something comes across my desk that I literally have no idea how to approach it. Yesterday, someone asked me about a gun trust. I have no idea what that is, or how to even approach it. But that's like something that you have to, think about and say, well, I'm not the best to answer this. There's somebody out there that can. When to put your pride in check, and for the better of the company. And I think that's really how you kind of have to assess each situation.
Two quick comments to that. First, I'm surprised you didn't say first we're going to do the criminal background check and the guy that asked you about
I know, I
gun
was like,
trust.
I don't know, no idea how to handle it.
Right? There you go. So that's a really important point that you're making, which is, and you're learning it in law school, just like I learned it in law school and undergraduate and all steps along the way. You don't know everything, and you can't know everything. So don't pretend to know everything. Some of the most important value I bring to my company is the ability to say, I don't know, but I know how to find out, figure it out, or who to call. And the budget thing comes into play also because, initially, if you don't have that expertise, you're going to go outside for it. But if you find you are relying on that a lot, you're going to hire somebody inside. They're going to come in, and that will be a specialty practice inside of your company. So sort of the dynamics of the business and the needs as they arise will decide how much you're outsourcing and whether it's time to insource that. And it's always going to be a combination of those things because of those one-off things that come up. You say, I have no idea what that is, and I'm not going to hire somebody in-house to do this because it might be a one-off.
Right.
So who do I connect with?
I think that's a really good point, that it depends on the skill set of the in-house legal staff. That will determine in large part whether you're going to go outside for help or not. Just as an example, Lear is an $18 billion a year revenue company, very large company. We have only 12 lawyers. We've made which is very few for a company our size, if you look statistically. We made a conscious decision that we think it's better to go on the outside to hire attorneys as we need them, because it's a variable cost, not a fixed overhead item. And it gives us the luxury of choosing the exact right lawyer we want for the project. So that works great for our business. For a business that has a lot of litigation, as Angelo said, it may make sense to hire litigators to have them try those cases, because you have them able to, you're not being billed on an hourly basis, so their salary will be far lower than what you pay on the outside. We fortunately don't have that. So it'd be foolish for me to have lawyers, tied up on a one-off basis where they're going to trial to try a case. Not that they wouldn't be able to do it successfully, but now they're out of the office for maybe days or weeks on end, not able to handle the rest of the business that I need them to take care of. So it's always a balancing act, based upon skill sets. We have a number of lawyers who work with me who are very experienced in doing merger and acquisition work. So we do a lot of the merger and acquisition documentation ourselves in-house. Now, we'll rely on outside counsel to assist where needed, but we have those capabilities. So again, it just depends on the skill set and the work mix that you have.
And if you want to scare Terry, just mention the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act.
That is what probably keeps most in-house counsel awake at night.
And for the public companies especially,
Right.
when you have overseas operations, won't mention the Department of
I was
Justice.
gonna say, you don't want to talk about DOJ and False Claims Act.
That was the class before we got here, but, yes, sir.
So for those of you that started off at a law firm, and you guys kind of touched on this, but how difficult is it going from making money for this firm, being a profit center, to being a cost center at a company?
So I'll give you the short answer from my perspective, and that is that if you're in with the right people and business folks who understand profit, and loss, sometimes it's not that difficult to explain. The money that we're not paying out in fines and settlements and judgments is money, right? A penny saved is a penny. It's worth a whole lot more than that, right? If you've got business-minded folks who look at a P&L, they understand both sides of that equation. So I've been very fortunate with just two, companies in 30 years of practice to be with folks who absolutely understand that this isn't, a cost center in legal, it's a cost-saving center.
I agree that you really have to choose the right company. So if a company views lawyers as, a necessary evil, which I'm sure you've heard that phrase before, and they're just there because we have to check the compliance box, and every company has a legal department, that's not where you want to be. You want to be somewhere where you really feel that they value you, not just for the legal experience and expertise you bring, but it's not only in your thought process, but also your business, your ability to help in the business, not just in addition to preventing, I think, issues from coming up, but also in coming up with strategies and things where it's a different mindset than an operational mindset historically. So yes, it's very difficult to change from being sort of the star of the show because you're the one that's bringing in all the revenue to sort of being non-revenue based. On the other hand, if you choose the right company, you're going to really be fine.
Yeah, I think it's all a matter of perspective also. I don't view our legal department as just a cost center. I think of us as trusted advisors to the business leaders in our company, and we help them make better decisions. And so just to give you a concrete example, you can imagine this. We're involved in an acquisition, and we're negotiating the terms of the acquisition, including the price. And through advice that you may give to the business leaders, or you take it on your own initiative, you negotiate a significant reduction of the price, millions of dollars. It makes it a lot easier to go back in your boss at budget time and say, we're value add. Remember that, right? So I think it is just making sure that people the business leaders have real respect for the function and the individuals in it. I preach to all the lawyers who work for me, and I try to model it myself, that I don't want them to view me just as a technical expert. I use the phrase trusted advisor. That's how I want them to view us. I want the business leaders to come to us not just when they have a crisis, but when they have a question that we can help them with to think their way through it. Then you'll very quickly find that you're no longer just a line item that shows up as a cost in their budget, that they view you as a partner and a profit center in a sense.
Amy, you're in a different position because you also have to deal with Manfred and his gang, and what's it like being in that kind of a hierarchy where you've got, unlike these guys are in companies that are more or less standalone, and you have to deal with regulators, but you've got Major League Baseball, and a real public, who's more public than the Tigers around here? The Lions stink. So how do you deal with those? You don't have to talk about the Lions, don't worry.
Okay. It is really interesting to have, so much of what we do is making sure we're compliant with Major League Baseball rules and the agency agreement. And to our benefit, though, I am a phone call away from a boatload of attorneys who provide an amazing resource for us. Major League Baseball has a huge staff of lawyers that are there specifically to help all of the clubs. And they are very supportive. Again, you know, you gotta play the game, know when to reach out to them, when to call attention to yourselves. But it is really interesting to have not only your regular day-to-day concerns, but then you also have to always make sure that you're checking the boxes to make sure that you are following Major League Baseball rules, which can be challenging at times.
I think we have time, if there's one more question, I think we could fit it in. Otherwise, let me, yes.
Could you just talk about what your day-to-day is like on average?
Gun trusts.
Anything and everything.
Yeah.
To the point about being a generalist, we are.
Yeah.
I mean, every kind of thing comes our way. You know, it's an employment issue. In our case, it might be a specific financial regulatory issue. It's a transactional matter. It's contract stuff. We run the whole gamut, right? So I actually, and some of you folks, again, have heard me say this, I always ask folks now to describe their high-five day. You know, where you've had such a great day where you want to high-five the guy mopping the floor, the ticket taker at the parking lot. For me, the high-five day is when I have really gone from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing, very diverse, very different, and help move the needle, even just a little bit on every one of those things. That's a high-five day for me. But it might not be for you. I mean, we all have to really take time early. I'm talking to that front row Angelo Vitale guy again. You know, take time early to be introspective, to really look and say, what makes me me? You know, what fires me up? When does my passion come out? In what circumstance? And that's true in your work, your social relationships, your spiritual life, all of the above. Because I have long held to this quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, which is, nothing great was ever achieved without enthusiasm. So just be enthusiastic, passionate about what you're doing. Even if it's not the thing you want to do for the rest of your life, just want to do it now for what you can get out of it, what you can learn, the people you can meet, all those things you can build on, and your future's going to sort of flow from that. So that's my high-five day. Lots of stuff.
That was awesome, yeah, and I love that high-five day, and I think maybe you guys are probably the same way. I thrive in environments where I'm not doing the same thing over and over. I love a challenge. I love not knowing what's going to be on my plate every day, and that motivates me because you get one step closer. You are able to get this deal done, or you're able to resolve some issue that's happening internally, and also that same day you're building an arbitration case to define the value of a player. You know, all of that can literally happen in one day, and those are little successes. I mean, yeah, we're not winning major cases in a courtroom, but we have our own little victories that are really rewarding to us. And I love that. I love the high five.
You know
I'm going to
how
use it.
that feels.
Totally do. Totally do.
Day.
Well, I would say I agree that your day is full of the unknown. And it's actually a great thing if you have, you know, a very diverse group of people coming to see you or wanting to meet with you, because then your influence sort of spreads throughout the company, and you really feel like you're adding value. I will point out, so it's not all Pollyanna, sometimes you know, he's like, oh my God, one more person in the door, you know, how am I gonna get done what I was supposed to get done? Or the CEO comes in and who wants to chit chat?
Kick the dog days.
And, you know, what do you say to the CEO when he wants to chit chat? Oh, I'm sorry, I really gotta get this thing out? No, you chit chat, you know, and so you do have to, you know, you have to realize that your life is, I think, less your own than if you were perhaps in a firm or in another setting, because you have one client, but you're there, and they're there, and they know that they're their only client, so you can't really.
You can't say, I've got a conference call with another
Right,
client.
that's right,
Somebody more
that's right,
important than
sorry,
you.
that's it.
You know, I think the great thing about being an in-house counsel, different than private practice, is that you don't live your life or measure it in quarter-hour increments. or increasingly tenth of an hour increments, right? And by that, for those of you who've not been out working in law firms, you know, that's how lawyers bill on an hourly basis, is they keep track of their time, generally in quarter or tenth of an hour increments. That was really liberating for me, because as an in-house lawyer, you get to exercise your professional judgment about how much time you're going to spend on a particular matter. So you feel comfortable that you've satisfied yourself, that you've gotten to the right answer. And you don't have the same pressure of a client who says, look, you spent 3 hours on that and you should only spend 1 hour, right? And I'm not going to pay you for those 2 hours. And that creates problems internally in law firms. So you have a lot more flexibility in your life in that regard. The other great revelation for me, going in-house from an outside practice, is I spend a lot more of my day in meetings than I ever used to. And I used to really resent that, because, as Alex said, you know, you're thinking about all the dozen different things you have to go back to your office to get done, and here you are in a meeting that just is dragging on, and you're sometimes wondering, why was I even invited? That was so short-sighted on my part, because what I realized is that by attending those meetings, I got to know the people, the business leaders, much better as people, and I got to know their problems and the business better. And when you are, and this would hold true even for your private practice, when you learn more about your client, you're going to be a more effective attorney. You interact at a whole new level with them. And so what I originally resented turned out to be a real blessing, and it's been a huge, now I enjoy that. I enjoy that interaction, and it's very different than, you know, just being in your office working away in a kind of a solitary way. You feel more part of a team.
Let me extend our thanks to Terry, Alex, Amy, and Angelo. I suspect they may be around for a minute. And there's another class, there's